will introduce
Peachtree Corners, your neighborhood. Peachtree Corners, where life is good. When you want to know what's happening and keep up with the times, come be a part of Peachtree Corners Life.
You're listening to Peachtree Corners Live with Rico and Rita, the weekly internet radio show keeping you current on the interests of the people, places, and politics in the city of Peachtree Corners. Be inspired, stay current, and be informed. Visit our website, PeachtreeCornersLive.com, for ways to listen to our broadcast live every week or download our podcast from iTunes.
Hey everyone, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Live here in the city of Peachtree Corners. We do this show every week, sometimes 8:30 at night and sometimes at noontime, depending on who the guest is and what we're doing. So I'm glad that my Facebook live stream audience is there and that my podcast listeners are here as well. We have a special guest tonight because we have an upcoming special election for certain races that had runoffs. So the runoff election date is actually July the 24th. And our guest tonight is a guest that is running for a seat that we've had several candidates on from various posts or positions. But this is Veronica Cope. She's an attorney of Cope Law Firm in Snellville. And she's currently a candidate for Gwinnett County Superior Court Judge in this runoff. And she's a native of Tarboro, North Carolina. Veronica's practiced law in Gwinnett County in the metropolitan area for over 16 years. And she's a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she earned a Bachelor in Arts and Political Science, and also actually dual Bachelor of Arts, yes, including African and African American Studies. She also graduated from the University of North Carolina School of Law, where she served as the symposium editor as a member of the North Carolina Law Review. There's
That's right.
Much more qualifications, but tonight's talk really is about Veronica and about her life and what she brings to the table and why she's running for office. So tell us a little bit, about your personal life. A little bit. You have 3 kids.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. I do have 3 children. Mm-hmm. I have Robin Jr., Dawson, and Dustin. I am the proud mother of those 3 boys. They keep me on my toes.
Do they? Good. And you've been, how long have you been in Gwinnett County then? In Atlanta, in the metro area? So
I've been in the metro area since 2001. I graduated from law school in 2001 and came here to work at a firm called King and Spalding in downtown Atlanta.
Sure, big company.
Yes.
And you were there for how long?
So I was there for 2 years. I worked as a business litigation associate there at King and Spalding, and then I moved on to practice law for General Motors, where I practiced auto warranty litigation for several years before starting my own practice.
Now you have a background in a variety of things in law. It's not just warranty. I mean, tell us the type of cases you've had over the years.
So I've handled cases ranging from or including business litigation, complex commercial litigation. I've handled personal injury matters both on the plaintiff side and on the defense side. So I've handled insurance defense. I've handled juvenile law, where I have also served as a guardian ad litem in matters dealing with the Department of Family and Children's Services. I have done some work for Nationwide as well, doing insurance defense. Really? And most recently, I've practiced criminal law for the last 8 years.
Wow.
So as a criminal defense lawyer.
So, that's just a variety. That's a lot. That's
yes.
A variety. And that's not even counting the nonprofits and the organizations that you work with and that you're on.
Absolutely.
Let's pull back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit more personal
sure.
about yourself. You're a mother.
I am.
You see things going on in the community and such. How what's the philosophy you have? How do you come at law? I mean, it's not in a vacuum. You're a mom. You have kids. One of your kids is into baseball. So there's sports in there as well. what type of philosophy do you come at? I mean, how do you look at your career? It's not just being a lawyer, but it's being a lawyer, but you're a mom and you're doing these other things. How do you balance all that?
Well, I'll tell you that my boys and then the two younger boys that are 5 and 11, Dawson and RJ, are both in the baseball. So literally, we're doing baseball all year round.
Wow.
So, but I'll tell you, they help keep it in perspective for me. As an attorney, I know that the cases that we handle impact not only our clients, but also their families and ultimately the community. So it's more of a holistic approach. Being a mother, it helps me understand this is somebody's child, this is somebody's father, this is, somebody's brother. And so I want to make sure that I advocate for my client, each and every one of them, as an individual to the best of my ability.
Does it ever get difficult? I mean, when you're, how young, what was the youngest age of any of the kids that you've had to defend or deal with?
So in juvenile court, we handle cases where the clients go up to, obviously at 17, they're an adult. They're considered an adult, although we know mentally and emotionally they're not adults. Right. But I'd say the youngest clients, probably 12 or 13 that I've handled delinquency cases for in the juvenile court.
12 or 13?
Yes, absolutely.
And when you've had to deal with that, I mean, there's a certain Latin name for being a guardian.
Guardian ad litem.
There you go.
Yes.
So you've had to be that.
Yes.
For these kids, I would imagine.
So basically, the guardian ad litem, you've got several different, usually in the cases dealing with the Department of Family and Children Services, the guardian ad litem is the person who is making sure that what's in the best interest of the child is before the court as well.
So if it's a divorce case or if it's a custodial issue, that would be like the type of thing that you would take care of as well within that.
So as a guardian ad litem in the juvenile court, the matters that I've handled as a guardian there were cases where there were what's called dependency actions, where the children have been removed from the home for some reason. And so the children have to be represented. So the guardian ad litem is the child's attorney.
Okay. Do you find that the Gwinnett system, you've dealt with it for a long time in the system. Do you find needs for change? Are there certain changes you'd like to see because of your experience on these?
I would say absolutely. And let me first say this. I've practiced all over Georgia. And I'm also licensed in Alabama and South Carolina. And I will say that we are blessed and fortunate here in Gwinnett County. We have a great bench. We have one of the best benches that I've ever practiced before. And but there's still room for growth and change. I believe that there's a legacy of excellence that our judges display on a daily basis. But in terms of the changes that I want to see improvements in efficiencies in the court. I think there are ways that we can be more efficient by utilizing technology that we already have available to us. And some of the judges do a really great job of using technology already. And I want to continue that. I want to help save taxpayer money. For instance, to bring someone who's charged with a crime, a criminal defendant from the jail, costs $40 a day. If you multiply that by 10, people coming from the jail, that's $400 a day for one judge. Then we've got 10 Superior Court judges. So you could have, that can multiply. Money, yeah. So we have, and while you want to make sure that every individual's rights are protected, from the criminal defendant to the victim to the witnesses. Everyone's rights are protected. There are certain procedures that we can do from the jail. As a criminal defense attorney, I've seen judges do that successfully, where we have video court per se, and utilizing that technology to be more effective and efficient,
like Skyping or to be able to do the video conferencing.
Yes, the video conferencing, and I think we can use that more before we actually get to court to save time when we get to court. So pre-trial conferences, for instance, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, we can utilize. A lot of times when we go to court, we'll have the pre-trial conference because everybody's there.
Right.
But think about how much time and resources we can save, and we can do some of those pre-trial conferences before we even get to court.
Yeah, because it's those pre-trial conferences are really setting the ground rules, if you will, for the case.
Exactly. What are the outstanding issues in the case? Right. That's particularly what you want to do in your pre-trial conferences. So that's something that we could do. Also, utilizing electronic calendaring. We have email. Almost everybody uses email these days. So there are some things that we can, instead of having attorneys sit in the jury boxes or in the courtroom for a couple of hours for calendar call, we can utilize technology to have electronic calendar call. If you want to make an announcement, you can do that electronically. And there are already some judges that are doing that.
Are they really?
Yes,
in Gwinnett County?
There are a few judges.
Why aren't they using it across the system then? Do you think?
I would say that sometimes when you get used to doing things a certain way and you find that to be, the best practice for your courtroom, that's probably the explanation. We have a lot of people look at the court in a vacuum as though it's one big court. It's in one big building, but you've got 10 separate, superior court courtrooms, and so you've got 10 judges doing it a different way. So what may work for one?
I never realized that.
So and it really is. Each one could have their own courthouse, because sometimes there's that much of a difference in the policies and procedures for each judge. So I like to see some level of consistency, and so everybody knows what to expect, from the attorneys to the litigants to the defendants. Everybody knows what to expect when they come to court, but we do have those differences.
Oh, that's interesting, because you could be in Judge Cope's court and another judge's court, and it'd be two different things.
Totally
an attorney
different.
would have to figure out, well, how does this judge want me to handle things? And
yes, absolutely.
That's not a good thing, I would think. I mean, that's just almost prejudices a case sometimes, because maybe I'm not doing it the right way, Judge, and this is the way we did it in Cope's court, but Well,
you know what? I wouldn't say that it prejudices the case. It's up to us as the attorneys to find out what the practices are and what the judges prefer. Okay. But I'll also say one of the gaps that I see is the treatment of youthful offenders. Having worked in juvenile court and in superior court and state court, is that the treatment of those who find themselves facing a felony, and they're not quite adults, quote unquote. They're 17, 18 years old, so mentally and emotionally they're not there yet, but they've been charged with a felony. So what I want to do is start another court, a second chance teen court, which would be another accountability court. Let's hold them accountable, but let's also work with our Gwinnett County schools, our community colleges, and make sure that they have not only a GED, but a high school diploma and a trade or skill, so that once they are finished with the program, they can go out and be productive citizens.
So how old is that range? What's the age range for that?
So that program would be for those that are between 17 and 21 years old. Okay. Who find themselves faced with a felony, and a lot of times it's their first time in court, and so we want to equip them to be productive, tax-paying citizens. So
would that happen within the system? Like if they were, I don't know how that would work, right? Let's say they commit a crime, it's a felony, and they're sentenced to serve time, I would think, no? So how would that work? Tell me.
So let's say someone is charged with a crime, right? Okay, and the way the accountability courts work, and we already have great accountability courts, our drug court,
Right.
our DUI court, mental health court, veterans court. But the way this will work is before they're ever sentenced, this is an alternative, let's say an alternative program. So it
Okay.
takes it out of the regular, court system per se, the regular flow of cases, and they would go into a program. Obviously, this would be for nonviolent offenders.
Right.
So, where there's they're doing self-harm or something like that, they or they're shoplifting or something like that. So nonviolent, and they get to choose whether or not they want to be in the program. So they can go the traditional route,
Right.
and have a trial or enter a plea, or they can come into this program, which would basically give them life skills. We still have to hold them accountable, right?
Sure.
But let's figure out. We all know if you get a felony, it's going to be hard to get a job. It's going to be
Absolutely.
almost impossible
Sure.
to get any type of financial aid or scholarship.
Right.
So, you start to see the revolving door. Let's figure that out from the beginning and figure out how to make them productive.
So I agree with you. I mean, obviously having kids before they get to that point where they're going to be spending time in jail, which almost becomes a school, or
Right.
detrimental to their emotional being. And they're young kids. Everyone makes mistakes. I can't tell you how many friends I've known in New York that they would make a stupid mistake because they were young, and then your life would be ruined because of those reasons, because of a felony or something like that.
Exactly.
So helping them out would make sense. And so you're saying they would work with the school system and being able to provide an avenue for them to get a productive job.
Exactly.
Essentially.
That's what I would like to do. I'd like to be able to partner with the Gwinnett County Schools and also juvenile court, because juvenile court already has a program that's similar for juveniles. And so I'd like to work with that program. It's called STRAP. And actually, I just went to a graduation for that organization recently. But it's a great program that helps put the young people on the right path. It attracts them and gives them tools to keep them from going over to the jail. So
to keep them out would be better.
Exactly.
Kids.
And it serves the community, because you're not having to have someone in jail that you're using taxpayer dollars to take care of every day, and they're giving back to the community because they're tax-paying citizens now.
Yeah.
They've got a job, they've got a skill,
and it makes sense. Listen, I know some people might say, well, no, they need to be punished that way because instead of spending money to educate them, which doesn't make that's not a great argument for anyone to give, because you want to be able to get these kids off the street. They might not be on the street. They might be, coming from good homes even.
Right.
It's interesting how people think about kids that get charged with felonies. Sometimes they don't think they're the kid next door. Or, they're from middle class family or low income family, or, different demographics. Life is not that easy, right? Kids get lost because of different things they do and because of the people they surround themselves with.
Exactly. And you don't know what type of home environment they're coming from either. So there are a lot of different factors that play into what happens with our youth.
Yeah. We don't know what's going on behind those closed doors.
That's right.
So you're involved not because of your kids, but you have young kids. So this certainly keeps you young like that.
Thank you.
And it keeps you really thinking about what's going on out there. But you're involved in other things as well. You've been explain a little bit about GAWL Foundation and what you do there.
Sure. So the GAWL, or GAWL, is the Georgia Association for Women Lawyers. And this is an organization, actually, we just celebrated our 90th anniversary this year. But it is an organization for women attorneys in the throughout the state of Georgia. And back in 2013, I served as president of the foundation. And so the Foundation for Gall is the charitable arm of Gall. And what that organization does is it provides grants for organizations that serve women and children, particularly women and children in the legal system.
Right.
And it also provides scholarships for law students, female law students in Georgia who are pursuing public interest careers. Okay. And so one of the programs that we do is every year, and we just did it this past week, was the Girl Scout Project.
I saw that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure.
That looked interesting.
So the Girl Scout Project is a project that we do every year at the State Bar of Georgia. And what we do is we bring in different scouts from all over the metro area, and they have an opportunity to basically try a real case.
Really? Like a mock trial?
A mock trial, absolutely. So what we do is we coach the young girls. You've got all the way from elementary to high school to seniors. So we coach the young girls. They have two different scenarios. There's a civil case and a criminal case. Okay. The civil case usually is Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then they've got a criminal case as well, Hansel and Gretel. And it's really fun. The girls have a good time. Then they have a real judge who comes in at the end. And for the last several years, it's been Judge Asa Jackson out of DeKalb County. And she'll come in and she'll serve as a judge. They'll get up, and argue their cases. And you've got witnesses. And it's a fun time. And the girls earn their Law and Order badge.
Wow.
So
that's cool. Yeah, I wonder how many kids get jump started that way to want to be lawyers. How many of those kids actually? A
lot of them come out saying they want to pursue a career in law. So we'll see if that happens. I think a lot of them do.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yes.
What else? You've been involved also with, I think, the Junior Achievement Discovery Center?
Yes. So this past year, I was a member of Gwinnett, and that is an abridged or shortened version of Leadership Gwinnett.
Okay.
And so as a part of that, one of my classmates actually was a part of the Junior Achievement. And so we had volunteer opportunities to go into the program over at Discovery High School and work with middle school students. So all the middle school students go through this program, and it basically prepares them. It gives them real life skills to be able to prepare a budget, to be able to, if you're looking at buying a home, you're looking at, you're going to need a place to stay, a car, all those kind of things. So the school partners with real organizations, and they will provide volunteers sometimes, but I served as a volunteer to help the students with their projects, which was, involved real life situations. So it was interesting to see the kids come through this year. Interesting
how they can get to know about budgets at that young age.
Yes, yes. I wish I did sometimes long ago.
Yeah. But my oldest son, when he moved out, he realized how much it cost to have the electricity on. The lights on in the house, all through the house.
Yes.
Be switching them off every once in a while. You've been all these organizations you're involved with, Gall and these. That provides, I think, a lot of exposure to people that maybe have informed your life a little bit as you've been going.
Absolutely.
Anything you've learned from that you want to share?
Well, I'll tell you that, these are real people, okay? So, particularly my work with the foundation, you see people from all walks of life. It allows you to have some level of compassion for people as well. The real work, I think, that we do is sometimes unpaid. And so that informs my practice as a lawyer because I look at people as individuals. I don't look at a client as a file. And that's the same thing I would do, as a judge. You have to look at the individual circumstances and not put people in a box. Don't prejudge people. So that's something, working through these organizations. I was a board member on an organization called Cool Girls as well. And it was for the self-empowerment. It is for the self-empowerment of underprivileged girls. And so you start to see how much of a difference you can make in people's lives. And you seeing those situations. And I try to get my boys involved where I can as well, because they need to understand, they've had it pretty good because mom and dad have worked hard to make sure of that. But they need to understand that no matter who the person is or where they're from or their financial status, to always be courteous to people, always be kind to people. Like I said, to treat everybody as an individual. So that's one thing that my service on these organizations has taught me. And I bring that into my practice every single day. I've worked from Fortune 1, 2, 3 companies, to doing a whole lot of indigent defense work. And I put the same energy and passion into my indigent clients as I do my paying clients. So to look at people as individuals, I'll advocate for anybody. Same thing as I do with my sports clients. It's all about advocacy.
Right. Now, and we'll talk about that in a minute too, because that's an interesting aspect to it, I think. Obviously the pro bono work. I think anyone that's alive, they watch TV, they see TV shows, series about lawyers and stuff, and they understand pro bono work. But I don't think people really understand pro bono work. Pro bono, it sounds like, most people think pro bono is, you're taking a couple of free cases because maybe you're required to do it by law or however that works. But I don't think people understand the amount of work that's involved in doing that, because you're still treating it as a full case. It's not just, this is class 2. This is treating all your cases the same, whether it's paying client or not.
Absolutely. And oftentimes you'll work the hardest on those pro bono cases. It may be, a case from, someone being charged with shoplifting. You're a senior in high school. They're trying to graduate. You want to make sure that happens without them having that blemish on their record. But it's a passion I've known I want to be a lawyer since I was 8 years old.
Really? Since 8 years old?
Since
really?
8 years old.
So what made you want to do that since you were 8? What triggered that?
I will tell you, as you mentioned earlier, I grew up in Tarboro, North Carolina. And the very first lawyer that I ever ran into really motivated me. And that was a person that was in the town. And I saw what I perceived to be a lot of injustices, even from a little girl. And I said, one day I want to be able to help people. If you look back on my law school admissions questionnaire, it was, I want to be able to help people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford competent counsel. So I knew I wanted to be able to go into be a criminal defense lawyer. Unfortunately, coming out of law school, I had law school loans. And so, and on top of that, I had a great opportunity to go to work at King & Spalding. And so, I enjoyed that opportunity. But, working with those, big companies and versus working with someone whose life or liberty is at stake, it kind of moves you a different way. And not to say anything's wrong with working for the the Fortune 50 companies, but I have been most fulfilled because I know that this was a part of my purpose from the very beginning, being able to help people, and that's why I'm running for judge, because I believe that I can best help people and serve the community as a judge at this point in my career.
And how long have you been a lawyer now?
I've been a lawyer. September will be 17 years.
17 years.
Yes.
Wow. When 8 years old, it's like every kid thinks they want to be president or something at 8 years old. And then they get older, they're in high school. Did you still think when you were in high school that's where you wanted to go, law school? Were you...
I did play sports, so I was into sports, I thought a little bit about trying to play professional, but I have to remember when I came through, the only options for professional basketball for women was overseas. It wasn't until I got to college that we had the WNBA, and I knew that probably wasn't in my future. But I always wanted to practice law. As long as as long as I can remember. Of course, your TV shows had an influence on me too. We watched Perry Mason and Matlock. Who to this day probably was one of the biggest influences on me. And the interesting thing about it is when I first started practicing law, I had the opportunity to meet Bobby Lee Cook, and I had a case opposite of Bobby Lee Cook, and I had to contain myself because this is the person whose character I had, admired all of my life. And I have to be honest, my first Georgia license plate was Ms. Matlock. It was.
Oh, that's
how much I admired that character.
That is good. That's poetic.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. So, you're a basketball player, right? Were you high school or
I
college
did play
too,
basketball. I played basketball in high school and had actually signed to play basketball in college for Appalachian State. But in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Okay. So when I got an academic scholarship to UNC, I had to call Coach Robinson at the time and tell her I wasn't coming to Appalachian State. So I did not play collegiately. I worked out with the girls, and some of them are still my dear friends, but I did not play in college.
Oh, wow. But, that leads us to the fact that being a lawyer and having a sports background, there's some stuff you're doing with regard to the NFL, no?
Yeah, so I've been a certified agent through the National Football League Players Association since 2011. I love all things sports. We come from a sports family. Actually, my mother and my father played basketball in high school.
I was going to ask you that. There had to be some influence.
Yes, and actually, my brother just finished his career playing professional basketball overseas in Barcelona. Probably about 3 years ago. And I won't tell how old he is, but he has had a 20-plus year career playing basketball. He started out with the Supersonics. He got what you call a cup of coffee, a very short time with the Seattle Supersonics, and then he went to play overseas and played in a bunch of different countries and loved it.
That must have been something else. And to be able to travel and play like that
absolutely
overseas as opposed to here.
Yes. He loved it so much he stayed. So he's still there now.
He's still there.
He still lives. He is a citizen of Spain.
Good for him. There's something to be said about Europe and stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Regardless of the EU.
Yes.
But, so how many brothers or sisters then? Just the one?
So I have one brother who is next to me in age, and I also have two older sisters. Oh, okay. So I'm the youngest of four.
Now, obviously he's basketball, but the other two law?
No, I'm the only lawyer in the family. So my oldest sister is an x-ray technician. She is a traveling technician, but she's based in Milford, Connecticut. Okay. And my other sister is into data entry. She is in Durham, North Carolina. Okay. And then there's me. So right now, my brother, he is into information technology, and he can do almost anything on a computer, build websites, all that good stuff. So, so he has a career. Thank goodness. Sometimes we worry about the athletes planning for after sports.
Right.
So
that's right. They can't keep
that's
playing
a good thing
the whole time. I'm sure they'd like to, but they can't. Right?
Absolutely.
So we've, so running for office. What have you learned so far about running for office? This is the first time you're running?
This is the first time I've ever run for office.
God bless you. This is baptism by fire almost. What have you learned? And this is not even like the typical, if someone's running for state house or something, you could talk about the issues.
Right.
You really even can't talk about the issues because they pigeonhole you, what you're not allowed to talk about as a candidate for judge.
Right.
So what have you found that you can't talk about? Or
So you can't talk about almost anything, it seems. Our judicial canons apply to judicial candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't talk about anything that might come before you as a judge. And so that makes it difficult when people ask you, your position on different topics. Right. You're not trying to dodge the question. You just, if it's something that could come before you, Superior Court handles felony matters, family law matters, property matters, and matters related to equity. And so, you
can't be asked the question, how do you feel about condemnation? How do you feel about, crime, in neighborhoods, burglaries, what would you do?
You can't answer the question of what would you do.
Essentially, right?
Exactly, and that makes it hard. As you know, these judicial candidate positions are nonpartisan, as I believe they should be. You go in front of a judge, they're not going to know if you've got a D or an I or a T or an R beside your name, and it shouldn't matter. The only thing that should matter is the only things that should matter are the law and the facts, and when you're in front of a judge. So, but we are very limited because people want to get to know who we are.
Right.
They want to know, well, who is this that I'm putting on the bench? And it just makes it harder for people to really get to know our stance because we can't talk about certain issues.
Right. I mean, you might you might not be able to talk about, are you for guns, against guns?
Right.
But just talking about your background a little bit, about your family, about the way you feel about certain the way you are as a parent.
Right.
Want a child needs to be disciplined, not disciplined. Who you are that way probably makes sense.
Yes.
What have you heard from campaigning? I'm assuming you're doing door to door. You're doing the typical, going to group meetings.
You name it, I'm doing it.
Yes. So what have you found? What's the feedback that you're getting at this point? What do people say to you?
People want to engage. People want to know who you are. They want to know your background. We are knocking on doors, and we have been. My campaign, we are on day 334 for the campaign.
Wow.
We've been campaigning since July 14th. Okay. By the time we finish, it'll be a year and 10 days. Wow. So if you name it, we've done it. We're knocking on doors. We're making phone calls. We're meeting people in the community. People want to know you. They want to see your face. They want to know. They want to engage with you. Mm-hmm. They want to have a conversation. I've knocked on doors. I've knocked on so many doors, it's probably losing count. But people are surprised to see you because a lot of judicial candidates don't canvass. They don't go knocking on doors. Gwinnett County is a huge county.
It is, yeah.
You've got 920,000 people. You're not going to knock on every door.
No.
But you knock on the doors that you can. You show people that you're accessible. Mm-hmm. And people want to see that because a lot of people may forget once they put on the robe, but judges serve at the pleasure of the people. It's not the other way around.
Especially these judges.
Exactly.
A Superior Court judge, right?
Yes.
As opposed to magistrates that get appointed by Superior Court judges, I think, if I understand that correctly.
Right. And so sometimes Superior Court judges will get appointed. Mm-hmm. In my situation, the Judge Tom Davis, who has served this community for a very long time, mm-hmm. He decided that he was going to stay the length of his term. Okay. And so that allowed an election. A lot of times the judges will retire early, and therefore the governor would appoint someone in that position.
Okay, so I was ignorant of that. I didn't understand that. And yet he wanted to serve out. And so that doesn't really happen, I would think. That doesn't happen
often.
No, because the Republican governor would want to keep, even though it's a nonpartisan race.
Right.
You have to take care of your friends, it seems, in every political... I could say this, you don't have to agree with that. But in every political state, the Republican or Democrat, I mean, it happens on both sides. You take care of your friends, the people that... And you're going to put qualified people because you don't want to put people that it's going to show off bad for you.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can't put someone in place that is a Republican, let's say, or a Democrat, of your own party.
Right.
Because I can say this because this happens. Anyone that doesn't think it happens is naive.
So we have an anomaly for sure.
Yes, so which I'm amazed actually, because there's two of them like that.
Right, two Superior Court seats, and we had one state court seat. So we had 3 judges who decided to stay their term so that we could have an election.
That is amazing that happened like that.
Yes.
That's so unusual. But I'm glad it did, because it brings out the best in people, I think. It brings out candidates that have to, show their wear and say who they are and
Absolutely.
and run the race.
Exactly.
Are there concerns of people that have people shared any particular concerns with you or issues, or what do you think that they're more interested in that of people that you've spoken to so far?
Well, what I find is that a lot of people don't know what the various judges do. A lot of people don't know what a Superior Court judge does or a state court judge. Yeah. And so, a lot of people are ambivalent about it, about the elections. We've been talking about turnout. Turnout was low this year. It's going to be even lower for the runoff on July 24th. So that's another reason why we're out there knocking on doors. But people definitely have concerns about fair treatment. People want a judge who's going to be fair and impartial. I hear that all the time, and people will wonder. A lot of people wonder, well, what exactly does that mean? What does being fair and impartial mean? Right? Well, I'll tell you that Merriam-Webster defines being impartial as treating and affecting all equally. Okay. People want to make sure that you have a judge that's going to make decisions not based on race, gender, ethnicity, or financial status or pedigree. They are very concerned about that, and being in a diverse county. To be honest, people are concerned that the leadership does not reflect the community, and so those are some of the concerns that I see. And I think diversity on the bench is important because you want to ensure confidence in the judiciary. Mm-hmm. We hear so many horror stories about people not feeling confident, not feeling that they're going to have an opportunity to be heard or have a voice in court, and that's not the way things should be. We say we look from the time that we're 5 years old, we learned our Pledge of Allegiance, mm-hmm. right? And the last 3 words of that pledge are justice for all. And so that's the theme. That has been the theme of my campaign, is making sure that people feel like they are getting a fair mm-hmm. opportunity to be heard in court, and that people are treated as individuals and not just a file. You have to have a balance between, making sure our communities are safe mm-hmm. and making sure that we also have, on the other hand, grace and mercy. And those are sometimes difficult to balance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, when you go to church and you learn certain things, it's hard to see people putting that into practice sometimes.
Yes.
Because it's difficult. For a variety of reasons, but especially if you are a victim of crime.
Yes,
or
absolutely.
Someone that's a victim of crime.
Absolutely.
It's hard to put that into practice.
Yes.
I respect those people that can say, I forgive you, especially when it's a personal crime.
Right.
To say, I forgive you.
Yes.
Because I don't know if I could do that, and that takes a very strong will.
It does. I mean, I'm a victim of crime. Oh, yeah. I am. I've been a victim of crime as a teenager. I've been a victim of crime as an adult. And I don't like to call myself a victim. I'd rather say a survivor. But people, to your point, people look at me and say, "Well, you've defended criminals. How are you going to protect the community?" And I tell people, look, I live, I work, and I play in this community as well. Mm-hmm. I'm raising boys, young children in this mm-hmm. community. Of course, I want the community to be safe. But there has to be a balance. Everybody doesn't need to go to jail. Right. There are some people that can be restored. There are some people who can be productive citizens with the right type of treatment, with the right type of programs. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are some people that belong under the jail, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so, as a judge, you're being asked to make those decisions. You're being asked to impose sentence, and that I can see that can be difficult. But what goes into that decision shouldn't be any type of immutable characteristic or something that someone can't control. It has to be those things that matter, and those are the law and the facts.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does. It sounds good. I know it's hard to do in practice. But
Listen, I mean, I think every parent knows that has kids that they're essentially judging the house also.
Yes.
Because what do you do with that child that makes a mistake?
Right.
Do you punish that child? Do you show mercy sometimes? Do you realize that maybe just because they say no and they say why, the no doesn't help? You need to really back up the why part sometimes. Why do I say no? So yeah, I mean, I see that. I think most people, if they take a step back, they'll understand that life is not that easy.
Right.
Judges need to be able to. Mandatory sentences can only go so far, and it's so people think, well, that's the way it should be. 3 strikes, you're out. Well, yeah, I sure 3 strikes, you're out. But those first 2 strikes or that first strike may not have been needed. Right. Maybe that first strike caused the other 2 to come because that person couldn't handle the repercussions. Maybe they came out of a bad place. And that's what religion's about, right? We forgive, Jesus forgives, God forgives. We talk about that in church. We talk about that on Sunday. And I think people talk about that every day. And we need to be able to share that and do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
That has to inform us in our lives on a daily basis because, but for His grace and mercy, I'm a woman of God. So I believe that but for His grace and mercy, I don't know where I would be. And so that also informs me, as I move forward to try to become the next Superior Court judge. That's something that is a part of me, and it's not going to go away when I'm on the bench either. So it's coming up. We have, a couple of more weeks. 40 days and 40 nights. 40
Thinking
about a biblical reference.
My goodness sakes. Better not be storming and flooding out there. That's going to be a tough
It
race.
better not be.
I know. The Peachtree Corners is funny because I think in the middle of the summer, just before school starts, August 4th or 7th, whenever it starts, which is a month earlier than it used to start in New York. So it's like crazy.
August 6th.
Yes. It's the heat of the summer.
Right.
But, everyone's gone. The middle of July.
Yes.
It is like desolate here in Peachtree Corners. And you can see the traffic die down.
Yes.
It's like, my God, I can actually get to work in a reasonable time.
Exactly. So that's a major concern.
Yeah. How are you going
sure.
to get the votes out?
Doing what we're doing every single day, knocking on doors. We know people are going on vacation. Luckily, we're going to have early voting from July 2nd to July 20th. We also have absentee voting where people can request a ballot online.
Right.
Or they can send in an application for an absentee ballot, and go ahead and send in that ballot. And we're encouraging people to do that as well. But it is a task to try to get people to come back out to vote, especially when a lot of people don't even know there's a runoff on July 24th.
Yes. And even if they know, and even if they say, Veronica, I'm definitely going to come out to vote, come that day, you'd be surprised.
Yes.
Who comes out and who doesn't.
You would be surprised the number of people that think the runoff is in November. I said, if you wait till November, it'll be too late.
It's funny because it's being a diverse county that we are. Almost 1 million people representing, I forget how many nationalities and languages. Of course, I think Spanish is definitely one of the ballots is in Spanish.
Yes.
But, people think that, you were mentioning minority, representation on the court, because the court is all white, I think.
Well, we just elected our first minority in the state court, Veronica Cope and Leary.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's
but
right.
Until then,
it was,
we didn't have any representation of anyone of color.
Right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing.
Right.
But diversity, to me, always provides the ability to be more creative.
Yes.
And to be more inclusive.
Yes.
And to be able to understand different issues better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
and not only just a diversity of racial diversity, diversity of thought.
Right.
That always creates for a better community.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that diversity is a positive thing and not a negative.
Cool. Thank you for saying that. I mean, that's especially a thought, because that's like, I keep hearing these things about safe places in colleges. And I went to City University. There was no safe place. Mm-hmm. You were challenged every step of the way, which made me a better student, made me a better debater. Not that I was on the debate team, but you want to be able to come back at someone. You don't want to have being in the same what do they call it? Not the cylinder, but the you don't want to be just among the same people. You want to have diversity in thought. You want to be able to have that interaction back and forth.
Yes,
because it does make things better, and you do see things differently, I think, once you have that.
Absolutely.
And we have a great county to be able to do that in. So,
we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Any particular part of where in Gwinnett do you live?
I live in Grayson.
Grayson.
Yes.
Grayson.
So my kids are in the Archer cluster.
Okay. That's way on the other side of the county, right?
It is,
Almost.
and we won the championship in football last year.
Grayson has a good team, yes.
Not Grayson, Archer.
Oh, okay.
But Grayson has a great
basketball too. No, at one point
I don't know about basketball. But I know football. They won last year. So,
yeah, Gwinnett County is so huge. I don't know how you're doing this, because I mean, you could go to all ends of the county. I mean, you have to. I'm sure you have to pick and choose a little bit about where you're going.
Well, I try to go to every single city. Town in Gwinnett County, and I did that before May 22nd. What I did was I would have coffee at one or two places every morning in a different city.
Wow.
And so, because I wanted people to know that I'm accessible, and I want them to be able to come out. And a lot of people did come out, and just to say hello or to meet me and ask questions, and I welcome that.
Cool. And getting back to work then was okay.
Getting back to work.
You had to plan that around your schedule, because that's to work full time in campaign is a tough thing.
You don't sleep.
No, I can't
I'll
imagine.
sleep on July maybe 26th.
Your kids are going to be saying, "Mom, where are you?"
Right.
It's a tough thing, but we have a couple of people that want to say hi, I guess.
Okay.
Maury Swafford.
Hi, Maury.
Early voting, July 2nd through the 20th.
Absolutely.
Maury.
Thanks for the reminder. We need everybody to get out. And don't just go vote. Take 10 people with you to go vote.
There you go.
Find out. Make sure your friends and your family are going to go vote also. Give them a ride. Be Uber for the day or Lyft or whatever you prefer.
That's a good campaigner.
Yes.
I used to work for Chuck Schumer when I was in New York. I worked for him for a year.
Okay.
Yes, I was a Democrat at some point in my life. But he would campaign in the subways in off-year elections. And I would be like, Chuck, why? Mr. Schumer. No, Chuck, well, I called him Chuck, and he was fine with that. And he would say, I'm not just running on the election year. I want people to know who I am, all the time.
Exactly.
I think you learned that from Ed Koch, because it was sort of around the same period that they were around. But, campaigning is a tough thing. I'm glad to see you're enjoying it, though.
You know what? I love people. So I love meeting and talking to different people.
Okay.
The part I don't like is the fundraising, which is the most important part. We've got to do it, though.
Yes.
We have to do it. We have to reach, like I said, almost 1 million people. So that's the part that I dread, but my fundraiser makes sure that I keep going.
And you have a fundraiser.
I do.
Okay, and that's critical. I've heard from a couple of candidates where they knew they needed it. They sort of had a part-timer, but you really need someone concentrating and doing that. Because
absolutely.
Otherwise, if you don't raise money, you can't put out mail, you can't do things. And
absolutely.
So you're doing the right thing.
That's the way that you reach people.
Do you have a campaign manager?
I do. I do have a campaign manager and a consultant, and they've helped me get this far, and hopefully they'll help me cross the finish line.
All right.
So
it's a tough race, and being in a runoff.
Yes.
It's going to be even tougher. So.
Yes, because getting people, like you said, getting people to come back out is going to be like pulling teeth.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? We have just a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
So why don't you tell the Facebook audience and the podcast audience, give them your 2-3 minute why they should be voting for Veronica Cope, and tell them where they can find more information and all that.
Absolutely. So I believe that I am the best candidate for this position. I'm running for judge because I believe in justice for all. I believe that no matter your race, gender, ethnicity, financial status, or pedigree, that you should be before a judge who is compassionate, courteous, and makes decisions with a commitment to being fair and impartial. I have been uniquely groomed to serve in this position. I have handled cases on both the civil side and the criminal side. I have tried cases in both civil and criminal courts. And I believe that I have the temperament to be able to serve the community with compassion. I believe that I have been equipped with those tools that are needed to continue the legacy of excellence here in Gwinnett County. You can find more information about me at www.copeforjudge, COPEFOR, judge.com. I am on Instagram and Twitter at Cope4Judge, and I'd love to have your support. I need volunteers, so come out and canvass and knock on doors with us. We also need donations as well, and we need your prayers as we continue to go throughout Gwinnett County and make Gwinnett County even greater.
Cool. Great. Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate you being with me, coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was fun.
Absolutely.
I've had quite a few. I don't think you're the fourth or fifth so far a judge candidate.
Okay.
But a variety of people over the last 2 years. So this is cool for me because I get to know a little bit more about the Superior Court. So it's been fun. And I just remember to go out and vote July 24th. There's other elections on the ballot, I believe. But
there are.
I'm not quite versed. I can't tell you who they are. So go to
just remember the judicial candidates.
This is the important thing you need to remember, right? So remember this. Remember Veronica Cope, and check GwinnettCounty.com because they'll have all the other information you need about where to vote early. Because I think it's probably the same places.
The only place, there will be no satellite voting. So the only place you'll be able to early vote will be at the Gwinnett County the Gwinnett County Voter Registration and Elections Office at 455 Grayson Highway in Lawrenceville.
Wow. Okay. And then otherwise you could do a mail-in?
Yes.
If you get your ballot early enough.
Yes. You can request a ballot at GwinnettCounty.com. If you just key in absentee voting, you can fill out the form for absentee voting online, or you can request or you can print it out and send it in, and they will get you your ballot back. Now, the important thing to remember about that is that you have to return that ballot either by fax or mail, or walk it into the elections office by July 20th. Also, if you ask...
So date stamp by July 20th if it's at the post office.
Yes. Okay. It has to... and you also have to remember that if you request an absentee ballot, you cannot vote in person. So those are important.
Right, you can't vote twice.
You're right.
Okay, good point. Right. Because some
so even if you lose it, if you lose it, you better go fill out an affidavit and get another one.
Oh, you mean if you lose it, you can't go vote?
Right.
Oh, okay. I missed that detail.
If you apply for an absentee ballot
and don't
online
send it in,
you
can't go vote.
You're going to have a really hard time going to go vote in person.
All right. And do you need to notarize that ballot before you mail it in, or you just sign it normally and just send it off?
No, it's not notarized.
Really?
You sign it, you fill it out, and you send it in.
Wow, okay.
And you don't need a reason.
Good. That's even the better part. So no laziness.
There's no reason. You can sit on your couch and vote for Veronica Cope for Superior Court Judge.
Cool. Okay. So I think this month we were supposed to have an Ed Hour also on the 21st, but we may not be able to do that. I think we're going to swing into the Ed Hour with Alan Kaplan in July, just ahead of school, and we're working on a show, so we're trying to put that together. And for those that are listening that like to listen to the Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson, that's going to be on the 28th. That's a Thursday at noon. Facebook Live, podcast, and all that. So listen into that too, and you'll be able to ask all sorts of questions about what's going on in the city, any issues like that. In the meantime, Veronica Cope, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to close this out and with a little end of show.
Thanks for listening to Peachtree Corners Live with Rico and Rita. Check out our Facebook page. Download the Spreaker radio app for Apple, Android, and Windows devices, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at PeachtreeCornersLive.com.